Hello, welcome to Waypoint Survival. Today we're going to talk about what should you wear in a winter survival situation. Stay tuned. So the first item, of course, that we put on as our very base layer is a pair of good synthetic shorts. I prefer these for underwear. They're made by Under Armour. Doesn't have to be Under Armour, but something that will fit nice and snug and kind of help keep you warm. You do not want cotton because cotton, of course, will get sweaty when you're hiking, walking, climbing. If you get any kind of overheating going on, you're going to get your underwear soaked, and that's going to lead to chafing. And there's almost nothing worse than being out in the wilderness and being scalded or chafed between your thighs. So these synthetics help a lot with that. Next, we have our wool socks. And of course I did a video on this, but you need a good pair of wool socks, at least 80% wool if you can. And they have multiple uses, as I have demonstrated in some of my other videos. And I could put a link to it right up here if you're interested in that. So next we put on our wool socks. After that, we have these polypropylene pants. And these are cold weather, and they are military surplus. And you can get them in many sizes, small, medium, large, extra large. And you can find these relatively inexpensively. I find these sometimes as cheap as $5 a pair here in the United States. So these are your base layer. Again, you don't want cotton. A lot of the long johns that you get are cotton material. It's horrible. You get sweated, they get soaked, and then it takes a really long time to dry out and you just get cold. This has wicking properties. This polypropylene will actually wick the moisture off your body. And by the way, you do want this layer to fit relatively snugly. You want it to be fairly tight against your skin. And what that does is that helps pull the sweat off of you so that it doesn't stay next to you and make you cold. The next layer that you would put on your legs, on the lower portion of your body, is a pair of pants. And these are 5'11", the tactical pants. They don't have the cargo pockets. I prefer the cargo pockets, but these didn't have them. I got these really cheap at a secondhand store. I think they were $3.99 or something like that, so $4. And in my size and in great shape, so that's a good deal. Now, these are not full synthetic. They are 65-35 polyester and cotton. I prefer 100% nylon or something like that, but a 65-35 blend is acceptable, and I do use these quite a bit in the winter. The next thing we will put on our upper body is the matching set here to the base layer that we had on our lower extremities, and this is just a polypropylene shirt. And you can see it's got a zip up here. If you wish, you can zip it all the way up to your collar to help keep your neck warm. You can also unzip it if you get really cold. But again, I find these sometimes as cheap as $5 a pair. Just keep your eyes open and do your shopping. You can find these at secondhand stores here in the States anyway, and a lot of other places. Sometimes military shops will get like a large supply of these in, and they're just clearing them out really cheap. So I like the polypropylene base layer next to my skin. Okay, so the next thing that we put on over top of the polypropylene base layer is, I really like this here. This is a Columbia shirt, and this shirt itself is just completely synthetic, and it's made of nylon. And what I like about it is it's light, it dries fast, and it doesn't take a whole lot of care, but it's also kind of windproof. So when I strip down to my layers, if I have my base layer on and this shirt, I'm somewhat protected from the wind, and that's a really good thing. The next item that I would put on my top portion after the polypropylene and the synthetic shirt is a nice fleece of some kind. Now this is a Polartec fleece, and it just has a medium zip here, so it doesn't go all the way down. It does have pockets, as you can see here in the front. And the pocket goes all the way across, so you can kind of keep your hands warm. And this is my third layer, or my mid layer as it were, and this will just help keep me warm. This is an insulation layer, but it also hates water, so it will continue to pull water off my body and wick it to the outside. The next layer that I would wear is this soft shell jacket. And I really like soft shells. I think they have a lot of utility. They are mildly water resistant, so they're not going to handle a heavy downpour, but a light rain, and a lot of times in the summer this might be all that you need. But this would be layer number 4 that goes on top of the fleece. And again, this is a windproof layer, so it will help wick the moisture off of you, and it will also help to keep you warm if it's windy outside. We've got some wind blowing right now. Our last layers that we're going to talk about are our waterproof layers. And in a winter survival environment, you always need some waterproof layers. Especially in our environment here, in this part of our world, we have really wet winters, cold and damp. We don't get really dry cold. I've seen it get down to 24 below here in southern Ohio, but that's just one time in all the time I've lived here. And I've seen it hit below 0 multiple times, but it does get really cold for a very long time. That's usually just a dip into those temperatures, and then it bounces back up. And we are far more typical to go between about 15 degrees Fahrenheit and 30 to 35 in the winter. So kind of mild, but the problem is that means it's wet and it's damp, and when it rains, snows, sleets, or whatever, you're probably going to get wet. So you got to have an outer layer that's a shell layer. You don't want it to be thick and insulated and it cause a bunch of heat. You just want something that basically keeps the moisture off of you, that you can take off easily when you don't need it anymore. Next, I want to talk to you about what we put on the outside for waterproof layers. And I have these overalls, and they're made by Frog Togs. You get a better idea perhaps what they look like. And they just have some stretchy elastic over top with some snap buckles, and it's very easy to put off and on over top of your clothes. They are non-insulated. As a matter of fact, I do use them in the summertime when power washing, just to keep my lower extremities from getting wet from the power washer. But you know, what I like about bib overalls, they come up high in the back and the front, of course, and the problem a lot of times in the winter is because you have 2 layers, the top and the bottom, you're separated in 2 halves. You can get a lot of wind that blows in, and even moisture, rain and snow and whatnot. So because this goes up high front and back, it kind of seals off that middle portion, and can help keep you relatively dry. So I prefer wearing this over everything else, and the way it's made, the zippers and the Velcro and everything, I can easily put it on over top of my boots and my clothes without taking anything off. So this is easy to put on and off, and I keep this usually pretty close to my outside of my backpack so that I can access it easily. One other thing about wearing this as opposed to just a pair of waterproof pants. I like doing this along with a poncho, and that gives me a really good coverage. The poncho I prefer because it covers my backpack, all my gear, and it covers me. It also gives me an additional layer if I need it for you know, for a cover. I can use the poncho as a tarp or as something lay on the ground for a waterproof barrier, a ground sheet. So I really do like to wear some kind of waterproof pants, or these are my preferred right here method of staying warm and dry in the wintertime. Also, I prefer to hike with a poncho as my top rain gear. I do have a coat that I'll show you here in a minute that works great, but a poncho I can throw over top of me and my gear, over top of my backpack. It also can double as a shelter, and you know, you can put it on the ground for a ground sheet. The next item that I want to show you is a Gore-Tex coat, and this is made by Cabela's, and it is a Gore-Tex, but it's just a shell. It doesn't have a lot of insulation in it, and this is just a great option to throw over top of all those other 4 layers. So this would be my 5th and waterproof outer layer. If I get overheated, I take this off, I take the fleece off, I'll take the other layers off on down. Even sometimes you might even get all the way down to your base layer depending on how hot you are. But there's something that I do with this coat that I think is very valuable, and I try to do with all of my coats. Inside, in the pockets, I like to carry, if I can get to it here, this thing's sliding around, I like to carry some gloves. So all of my jackets have gloves in them. And these are Columbia, and they're basically waterproof gloves. I like these quite a bit. And then also down in here, I like to carry a stocking cap, just a knit cap of some kind. So in my coat, in my outer layer, I always have gloves. Sometimes I'll carry the right one in my right pocket and the left in the left pocket. Depending on if I have an inner pocket, I might carry the hat in there perhaps, or in one of the outer pockets. But anywhere where it's accessible, I can take it off and on. So you always want to have that with you, and I always know when I grab my jacket, I've got my gloves and I've got my hat right here, and I don't have to worry about where they are. When it comes to headgear, a hat like this is nice, but it really doesn't keep your head warm. My ears right now are pretty cold. I mean, it's 31 degrees Fahrenheit, but the wind is blowing, and I'm feeling quite chilly out here. Actually, I can start to feel a little bit of an ache on my ears. And so I really like a balaclava. And of course, this, many of you already know what this is, but this is just something, a hood that you wear, and you could put it over top, put your other hat on top of it, and it makes a pretty good hat. And also, because it covers your mouth, it could do multiple things. So here we have the balaclava put on, and what's nice about this, of course, it's got a bit of a breathing area here that's like a synthetic panel that helps keep the moisture in your breath from making it wet. It's a fast drying membrane. What's nice about the way these are made is I can actually just pull it down like that. And so if it's not too cold, I can wear it like this. If it gets really windy, really cold, or I'm really huffing and puffing and I'm sucking in a lot of cold air, I can just put it back over my face, and now I have the ninja look for the outdoors. But the other thing also that this is good for is sleeping at night. So when you get into your sleeping bag and you pull it over top, of course you always want to leave a breathing hole so that you don't put a lot of condensation and moisture inside your sleeping bag. But this is great to just kind of keep you extra warm during those cold times at night. And of course you can always pull this down if you get overheated, and you can put your hat on top. Of course you'll have to adjust your hat if you put your hat on top. You know, obviously it's going to make a difference like that. But this is just a decent configuration, and if you have a favorite baseball cap and you just have to wear it everywhere you go, then you can put a balaclava on underneath it. It's pretty well windproof. The other nice thing about a balaclava is that if you don't want to wear it over your head, I mean, you could put it over your hat if you wish, but you can just keep it around your neck as a neck warmer. And so I really like a balaclava. It has just a lot of great uses, and in some of my winter videos you'll actually see me wearing this. The last item that I want to talk to you about is this hat made by Outdoor Research. It's Gore-Tex. It does have Velcro on the side, so you can wear it in kind of the Ranger fashion. But anyway, this hat is a great hat. It's wide brim, it's longer in the back than the front, so it helps shed the water off your back as you're walking around. And what I like about this is it doesn't impair my vision like if I just wear the hood of my poncho. A lot of times, you know, it's very hard to see, or the hood of a jacket. This is wide enough to keep the snow and rain off of me, keep it out of my collar as well. And that's just something that I like to carry. Now, I don't know if you noticed or not, but that coat, that Gore-Tex coat that I showed you, it doesn't have a hat. Now, I'm not against the pullover hat attached to the jacket. But one thing you have to be careful about, if it's raining or snowing and you've got that hanging down, it's like a scoop. and rain and snow will fill that up. And then if you forget and you go to put it over your head, you just dump a bunch of snow and ice, water right over top of your head. So I will often tuck the hood down inside of my jacket, especially if I'm wearing a hat like this. The last item I want to talk to you about, a good pair of boots. Now I prefer all leather boots. These are military surplus. They are Gore-Tex. You read that? And they are fully gusseted, which means the tongue of the shoe goes pretty well all up to the top, which of course if you walk in water, they're waterproof up to about that deep. So these are just plain black leather. What I like about them is I can treat them and retreat them. Nick wax is a great waterproofing material, and these actually need to be treated again before I go out. They're getting a little dull. But you can use these over and over again, and they're great for creek crossings. They're great for just walking around the snow, and with a good pair of wool socks, these are good to about 20 below zero. And so I've used them in quite cold weather and had no problems at all with them. So anyhow, you should definitely get a good pair of waterproof preferably Gore-Tex or some other good membrane boots, and you don't have to pay a lot of money for these. I think I got these online brand new from eBay several years ago for about $45. So that's actually a good deal, and you can find your size if you look carefully and look around for them. So here are the items laid out in order of putting them on, more or less, and just kind of scan down the table here. And we'll show you just briefly again. So of course, wool socks, Under Armour synthetic underwear, our military surplus Gore-Tex boots. Here we have our heavy-duty polypropylene bottoms. We have our synthetic pants and a nylon. Then for base layer, we have the heavy-duty polypropylene shirt, of course long sleeve. And then over top of this, we would put on the pants, this is the overalls that we showed you made by Frog Togs. Then starting on our base layer, of course, using the polypropylene shirt first. Then we go to the nylon synthetic shirt, then our fleece. Then on top of that, we'll put our windproof layer, which is the soft shell jacket. And then over top of this is our Gore-Tex jacket. And then of course we have Gore-Tex hat here made by Outdoor Research. And then also the Inferno balaclava. And of course this can be used in multiple configurations, but just to keep the wind off our face and neck, and often I'll sleep with something like this on. Alright, and so here we are wearing all of the layers that I showed you a few minutes earlier, and it's not very warm today. It is probably at this point, I think the high is only supposed to be about 17 degrees Fahrenheit, but I would be comfortable with this type of layering system down to about 0 degrees Fahrenheit, and possibly a little cooler. But what I can always do is I can always add a couple other layers. The most layers I've ever worn in a survival practice bushcraft situation was about 7 layers. So you can add more layers, but you do have to remember, as I said, that the outer layers need to be slightly bigger so that it will cover everything else. And of course I still have my other stocking cap in the pocket, so I can actually add to my head warmth should I need to. I hope this video has been a help to you. A lot of the environment that we're in here in southern Ohio and many parts of the Midwest, we just have really cold, wet winters. And so, I know if you're in the Arctic, you can wear different kinds of clothes, but it's generally dry. Even though it's very, very cold, you don't have all the moisture issues that we contend with here in this part of the world. So these are the kind of clothes that I wear for a winter survival or bushcraft situation. This is James Bender for Waypoint Survival. Please like, share, and subscribe. Make sure and check out the links in the description box below, and don't forget to press the bell button to stay notified of all of our upcoming videos, and we'll talk to you next time.